this sport, you live on the ragged edge. There's no in between. Succeed and you're a hero. Fail and you're a spectator. When you're Warren Johnson and you live 40 miles away, you must take advantage of your hometown proving grounds. The same for Bob Vandergrift. Home track advantage equals hometown success. Today, Georgia is on our minds for NHRA Winston Drag Racing. These are the kind of days you dream about here at a racetrack. Record crowd on hand, and the Advance Auto Parts Southern Nationals about set to unfold here on America's fastest network, Speed Vision. Good afternoon, everybody. Welcome to Commerce, Georgia. We're just up Interstate 85, about 40 miles from downtown Atlanta, and we have a wonderful couple of hours set for you. Let's preview what's coming your way. Frank Hawley with the Top Fuel story.
Thanks, Eli. You know, anybody that's been around motorsports for a while knows that the drivers get a lot of the credit, but it's the crew chiefs that actually make the cars run. And if you take a look at a modern-day Top Fuel dragster like Bob Vandergrift's, it's got literally miles of wiring and plumbing on there. And anybody that can understand all this stuff certainly deserves a lot of credit. And this is Ray Alley, Bob Vandergrift's crew chief. You know, you've just been with the team so far this year, and you're doing quite well. The car's qualified #1.
Yeah, thank you, Frank. Bob Vandergrift Jr. has well-funded this team and allowed us the freedom to do whatever we need to do, and that's what we get paid to do. Top Fuel racing is very difficult, managing over 6,000 horsepower. A lot like playing catch with hand grenades. Some days you don't die, and some days you do.
Well, it looks like it's been a very good weekend and a very good day for the Bob Vandergrift team. Steve?
Well, Frank, to absolutely no one's surprise, Warren Johnson has qualified his Goodwrench Pontiac on the pole in Pro Stock at 6.90 seconds, 200 miles an hour. That gives him lane choice round 1 over Tom Martino. And Warren, lane choice is something on this track you desperately want to keep all day.
Well, I don't know about desperately, but if you've got a choice, you'll probably take the right-hand lane. The left lane can be negotiated. We've tested out here quite often. And as long as you learn to negotiate the bumps by using the proper shift points on it, you'll be all right. But it's not the lane of choice if you don't race here that often.
A lot of fans at home are thinking, well, Warren's son Kurt must be #2. He's number 14. What happened to that?
He's probably experimenting like I do quite often and shot himself in the foot by just trying the wrong setup at the wrong time. And he had the right setup on his first lap, which is the lap he qualified on. But unfortunately, he didn't keep it in there. And I'm sure common sense will prevail, and he'll go back to that setup.
Go get him, Warren.
Thank you.
Okay, who is #1 in the Fuel Coupes? Here's Bobby Gerald.
Well, Steve, if everybody looks a little relaxed right now down here in the #1 qualifier in Funny Car, it's because they are. The #1 qualifier is Tim Wilkerson, and Tim, it's got to feel good to be #1.
It really does feel good. You know, we've struggled a little bit this year, but, you know, the whole team gets together and makes some good moves every once in a while, and this is one of them.
How's Terry Manzer? What's his role been in your team, and how much has he helped you?
Well, of course, Terry's the leader of this team. You know, he's really our backbone. So Terry, he come from the boat leagues, really, and he has so much nitro experience. Just because a guy, you know, never run a funny car like Austin Coyle for the last 50 years doesn't mean he doesn't know what he's doing. So, you know, we're real pleased with Terry. At least I am. Great to work with. Great to drive for, really, because he lets me drive when I need to drive, and we make good decisions together. So it's a great deal.
Anything short of a win today, will you still be satisfied?
No, I really won't. I'm so tired of being the bridesmaid. I was a bridesmaid 3 times last year, and I'm sick of that. So we're tired of seeing them green cars run up and down the racetrack like they own it, and today's going to be somebody else's day. I hope it's mine.
All right, Eli, some strong words from the #1 qualifier in Funny Car, Tim Wilkerson.
Indeed so. A lot of folks say everybody's running for second place in Funny Car. Obviously, Tim doesn't think so. We'll find out how his day goes as our coverage continues. That is a look at the pits. Thousands of folks meeting Jim Epler and others. We're back in a moment.
When you travel at over 300 miles per hour, you need all the protection you can get. Three-time champion John Force uses Castrol, the only leading 10W30 that provides maximum protection against both viscosity and thermal breakdown. Because some people have more important things to worry about. Castrol GTX. Drive hard. And try Castrol Syntec Blend for added synthetic protection.
Coverage of the NHRA Winston Championship is being brought to you by Mopar. Parts for Chrysler, Plymouth, Dodge, and Jeep vehicles from the dealerships that sell and install them. That's the Mopar difference. And by Castrol GTX, the motor oil that provides maximum protection. Castrol GTX. Drive hard. Fans taking their seats. The start of Top Fuel eliminations coming up in moments. There you see the points. You know, not only do you have to have a quick car and some good, nice elapsed times numbers, but when that green light comes on, you got to react awfully quickly. Frank Hawley tells us more.
In the super close competition in Top Fuel Dragster today, one of the things that could be the difference between winning and losing will be the driver's reaction time to the starting lights. Now, a lot of people think that maybe the younger you are, the better your reaction times will be. But that's simply not the case. In fact, sometimes a little more experience can make a big, big difference. Case in point would be the quickest driver in reaction time so far this year is Kenny Bernstein, and although he's not an old guy, he certainly isn't our youngest driver. Kenny, you've been doing great.
Hey, thanks for the help there, Frank. I appreciate it. I'm not that old. I appreciate it a lot. You know, it's great to be able to do it, but you know as well as I do, it's not always the driver. It's the way these cars are set up sometimes. Sometimes we're very aggressive on the starting line, sometimes we're not. So I've always said, like you did when you were a great driver in your day and doing what you did, it's not always the driver that gets all the glory and gets all the blame, unfortunately. Some days the way the car's set up has a lot to do with the way you leave.
Well, that's a good driver when he gives some credit to Lee Beard, his crew chief, for reaction time. Bob?
Frank, the most intriguing matchup today in the first round at Top Fuel has to be the matchup between Mike Dunn, the current points leader, and Doug Herbert. It's a matchup of two guys that have already won events this season. It's the only first round matchup that has a deal like that. And Mike, how tough is that first round?
It's going to be very tough. You know, our Team Mopar Dragster didn't qualify too good. We had a little bit of trouble with this track. It's a little tricky out there. You know, Doug and Dick LaHaye over there ran pretty good, but we got a little better each run. I think we got a good tune up for our first round. I think it's going to be a good race.
I know you've been going through some distractions here this week with the announcement that Mopar's not going to be back with you. Is that a big issue for you?
No, I don't think so. I mean, we're still, you know, going with it straight ahead like we were before, just going to go out here and try to win the race. I'll tell you, though, with qualifying the way it is, if we come away with a semifinal finish here today, I'd be plenty happy. You know, this track is just so tricky, but, you know, I got a good team. Ken Finney's a great crew chief. I think we definitely got a shot at it. We're not out of this yet.
Mike Dunn getting ready to go, Eli.
And certainly he and Herbert's going to be one great matchup, but pick out your favorite driver and see how he is aligned here in the opening round of Top Fuel competition. That Schumacher-McLenathan battle is going to be a good one right there. And, of course, the ageless one, Eddie Hill. There you see the Herbert and Dunn square. How about Amato and Connie Colette? Got a little veteran action right there. Gary Schulze is in the field. All of that coming up here in just a short while. Also, yes, the man is here. As you'd expect, John Force. We'll check him out and more in a moment. We're back in Atlanta. You know, this sport is no different than any other. If it can show up with confidence, you can do awfully well. Steve Evans is with two of last year's champions here.
At the Gator Nationals in Gainesville, Florida this past March, Corey McLenathan in the MB&A car had one of the worst engine explosions this reporter has ever seen. Blew the motor completely out of the car. Corey didn't know where he was, crossed the racetrack, hit the wall, destroyed the new tall car. So out of the rafters came Old Faithful, and in Virginia 2 weeks ago, everything came together. Corey Mack defeats Larry Dixon in the final round. And let's remember here in Atlanta that Corey Mack is the defending champion, and things are looking pretty good.
You know, they really have. We kind of struggled at the beginning of the season. Had the Gainesville mishap, really brought the old car back out, and things really turned around for us. It was nice to win Richmond, but we're back in Atlanta. We've done well here in the past. I'd like to win this one also.
I see championship hopes in those sunglasses. Take a look at his helmet. This is a true work of art, painted by a guy named Pedregon, but a guy named Tony Pedregon. It's Cruz that is Corey's teammate in the Interstate Batteries car, and Cruz, you are also the defending champion.
It's really good to be back in Atlanta. Defending champion sounds awful good right now.
You've been going around, second round, third round, even a fourth round here.
Yeah, we have, and that's important. You know, anytime you get to the semis, you're one step from the final, and, you know, the final round, anything can happen, and we feel like we can win some races this summer, and hopefully we can do it here this weekend.
They're looking for another double here in Atlanta. Eli?
Thanks, Steve. There are the fans getting settled in for the start of eliminations. You'll see funny car, as you will here on Speed Vision. There's the John Force division right now as he's pulling away. Meanwhile, Jim Epler's trying to chase him down. Frank?
Today, you need a very aerodynamic body. You need one with not much drag and a lot of downforce. Well, Jim Epler has come up with the first ever Corvette funny car body, and Jim, this has kind of been an evolution.
Well, it has. We developed this last year with Eckler's at Indy, and we debuted the car, and then we've refined it a little bit over the winter. And the next evolution in fuel funny cars, more downforce, and we were able to put the Corvette together because it has the smallest roof on it. Since then, they've gone to the minimum 32-inch roof, but more downforce is the key to more traction, and I think this Corvette's got it.
And Bob, today they're going to need a lot of traction at this Atlanta Dragway.
He'll be okay.
And here is the man, John Force, down here in his Castrol pit, getting ready for first round action. All the fans are here. And John, you've already won 4 times this year. You got a big lead in the points. How's Atlanta Dragway been to you in the past?
Well, Dragway is just great. The fans are really great here, and we want to give them a good show, but this track can be tricky in the heat. We didn't qualify real well, 3rd. And when you come off of 6 wins, Tony and I in a row, you worry when you're going to stumble.
Well, the fans love him. Am I right? How many fans love John Force? And you didn't even have to pay him to do that, John.
No, we didn't, and you didn't screw up either. You done good.
All right, Eli?
Yeah, the new guy in town, Bobby Gerald, good to have you with. I mean, I screwed up. Indeed, he didn't, though, and it's good to have him with us. Then you see the matchups. Left side of the bracket, over on the right side. Frank Pedregon's got Force first out of the box here today. You'll see it all on Speed Vision. Pro Stock, we'll check on those guys as soon as we come back. Kurt Johnson's crew working on his Pro Stock machine. 14th qualifier here this weekend. Little unusual for him. Warren Johnson, his daddy, has Tom Martino in this opening round. There you see one side of the bracket, Alan Johnson and Mark Howick, and there you see the other side. Meanwhile, who's that John Nobile guy? Steve Evans, who is he?
2 weeks ago at the Pennzoil Nationals, Warren Johnson qualified number 2. That meant he faced off with number 15, John Nobile. Warren stumbled just a little bit, and Nobile drilled him with an Oldsmobile from Island, New York. You won't find a lot of Oldsmobiles around, or guys that have qualified for every national event this year. That, John Nobile, you have done, and you got to be really proud of your progress.
Yeah, we're real proud of qualifying all the races, especially with the company we're keeping, you know, Warren, Kurt, and Jim Yates, and then us.
You've been doing this a while.
We've been doing this since 1989. I ran NHRA Pro Stock because we just couldn't afford to do this, but my trucking company's doing a little better, and here we are.
And you're soon to run a Mopar, I understand.
Well, we're hoping to. I want to, stay with Larry Morgan and, race what he races.
One of the things these guys want from New York, and that is a big shot at their first national event title here.
I was going to say I recognize that accent. It sounded like it was from Savannah, Georgia or somewhere. Later on this show and on our show at 6 o'clock Eastern time this evening, you'll also be seeing Pro Stock trucks and, of course, the Pro Stock bikes. The trucks already down to their semifinal rounds. You've got Tim Freeman and Mark Osborne in one semifinal, while the other side of the ladder is Craig Eaton and Randy Daniels. Meanwhile, here are 2 of the Southern Dwarfs, Happy and Grumpy.
It's heating up here in the pit of the defending Winston Pro Stock truck champion, Larry Kopp. He's doing a little tuning right now under the watchful eye of one of the best engine builders in the nation, and that is Mr. Bill Grumpy Jenkins, who has been doing this for some time. It's the 2nd year now with the Pro Stock trucks. How many trucks do you have out there?
Well, we've got 5 at this race, and they've been, I think, in the last year, starting with Larry, there have been 3 other winners in the 5 trucks. So that's 4 winners I've had so far in the last year.
Is there a big difference between the Pro Stock engine and the Pro Stock truck engine?
Well, just basically size. There's the 358 cubic inch, and the car engines are 500 cubic inch.
One of the things that's interesting about this, certainly, guys, is that everybody wants to name their engines. That's kind of a vogue thing to do here as we approach the millennium. And this one is named Buster the Dog, after a dog. Grumpy, engine's going to the dogs.
Well, I hope not.
Eli, we're just having a little fun down here.
Nothing wrong with that, Bobby. Of course, the dog is actually named after Buster Couch, longtime official starter for NHRA. By the way, that conversation recorded earlier this weekend because Larry Kopp is watching this telecast at home, as you folks are. He was knocked out earlier in competition. Now, if you like your racing on two wheels, we've not left you out either because Pro Stock Bike is on hand. Angel Seeling is the #1 qualifier as she has been showing the way throughout the course of this season. Other side of the ladder has Matt Hines, also has Antron Brown, the winner at Richmond. Frank Hawley is down in the Team Winston pit.
Eli, you know, it takes a lot of skill to be able to handle a top fuel dragster or a fuel funny car, but let me tell you, my vote for hero skill is the people that drive these Pro Stock motorcycles, and to prove that it's more a mental sport than it is a physical one is our #1 qualifier is not a big bad motorcycle rider, it's Angel Seeling, and you guys have had a great weekend.
We've been having a blast. This is the 4th race in a row that we've qualified #1. Team Winston and Star Racing are doing a wonderful job to provide me with the Suzuki that can go fast. I just have to keep trying to do a good job to get it down the track.
And you have been doing a good job. Eli, I'm going to head up to the tower to watch the rest of the drag races with you.
Come on up and maybe you can hop a ride there with Angel. And indeed, Suzuki seems to be the way to go in the two-wheel division. We'll be showing you that coverage as our afternoon continues. But enough of our talking. As soon as Frank gets up here, they're going to fire the engines, and we're going racing. While Warren Johnson accepts the spoils of previous victories as part of pre-race activities in Atlanta. Well, they have fired the engines on the Budweiser King, and we are set to go running the races for Top Fuel. The elimination rounds are upon us, and we are set to go. Eli Gold along with Frank Hawley here in the tower. Steve Evans and Bobby Gerolds downstairs. Doug Coletta and Kenny Bernstein squaring off. Kenny, 54 years of age, 21 Top Fuel wins and 30 in funny car. And Doug Coletta, having graduated from the sprints and the midgets to make a name for himself here in Top Fuel. All right, Frank, first run of the day. This track has been quiet overnight. What does that mean as far as track conditions to you as a former racer here?
Well, I think that the track's going to be in good shape. It's cool. It's not too hot right now, but this is nervous time for these drivers because they really don't want to be the first pair of cars down the racetrack. But these two drivers, because of their qualifying position, ended up with that option.
That happened, Steve. You're #8 and #9, and you're first to go.
I talked to a lot of the drivers this morning, and they feel that lane choice is not as big a factor here in the first round. It's fairly cool, even a little cloud cover, believe it or not. But as the day wears on, lane choice will be everything.
A magnificent day. You can see some of those high clouds that Steve was talking about. And look, both sides, there's not a seat to be had here at the Atlanta Dragway. We're going racing. Glad you're with us on Speed Vision. Oh, and there came a wheel right off. Look at that. Bernstein on his side and problems right out of the lights.
I'm sure that Kenny's in good shape because these chassis are very, very strong. They're meant to take impacts like that, but that is unbelievable to see a wheel shear off like that. He went off to the side. Doug Coletta almost ran into him.
The numbers for Coletta obviously not impressive. 12.6 seconds at 78 miles an hour, but he does advance. Bernstein's day is done some 60 feet from where it started.
Let's take another look at it. Kenny leaves the start line. Almost immediately something goes wrong with the right side of the car. It only smokes the left side tire, which shows that the right side tire at that point was not connected. He goes sideways. This is Doug Coletta's view. My gosh, he just barely missed Kenny. Unbelievable that he didn't get into that accident.
Coletta himself obviously up in smoke, and watch it again. Great view from that camera until the smoke obscures, and you're right, Doug Coletta. Watch how he just gets on the binders, folks, as Bernstein goes flying.
And there was nothing Kenny could have done to avoid that sort of accident.
Now remember, we have the onboard camera here. Let's see what we can tell from this weird look.
The car looks good as it goes out past the 60-foot clock, and then there's a shake. You can see that right rear wheel leave, and this is Kenny's view except from front of the engine. The car goes up on its side. There's very, very little he can do, but of course he's got that great safety roll cage, and the car stayed intact, and Kenny's going to be in good shape.
Man, what a shot from that onboard camera. And you see Kenny is okay. His longtime companion Cheryl Johnson is there alongside, and the whole crew. And what they're interested in seeing, as much as to making sure Kenny's okay, and certainly the safety safari tends to him, they're also checking to see what went on with the car. Bobby Gerald is right there. Bobby?
Well, let's get a word here with the Budweiser King driver, Kenny Bernstein, and that was a wild one. Certainly not the way you wanted to start this off. He is seemingly okay right now, getting ready to unbuckle the helmet. We'll get some words with him. Kenny, try if you can to describe what happened there.
It shook real hard. Major's terrible shake. Must have hooked one tire and then it turned right. Front end was up in the air a little bit. Just a major shake. And sometimes when they do that, then one tire takes a bite. Then it just made a turn and it's over with. You're just a rider upside down, hanging on. Just want to tell all the fans out there, appreciate it. We're fine. We feel okay. Beat up our race car a little bit, unfortunately, for Budweiser and Prolong and Mac. But hey, we're okay. My girl's all right.
And that's what's most important.
Absolutely.
Scary moment for the Budweiser King.
At that point, Kenny didn't even know
the
that
wheel
he had lost the wheel.
Right. Yeah, you heard him say he never commented about that wheel flying off. He just didn't know. And again, Lee Beard is crew chief there in the foreground. Kenny and Cheryl Johnson talking over what exactly transpired. We're coming right back. A wild start here at Atlanta. More in a moment. Coverage of the NHRA Winston Championship is being brought to you by the new Motel 6, now renovated nationwide and still the best price of any national chain. And by Castrol GTX, the motor oil that provides maximum protection. Castrol GTX, drive hard. Welcome back, everybody. Cleanup having just wrapped up from this incident. If you're just joining us, Kenny Bernstein to the right of your screen ends up at the left of your screen after that big old wheel on the right rear goes away, and Bernstein goes for a wild ride, Frank.
Well, I'll tell you, it just shows the safety that NHRA has mandated in these top fuel dragsters. That's an unbelievable incident. I don't think I've ever seen a tire shear off just like that. You can see the car leave the starting line, loses traction, and immediately shakes and shears the wheel studs off the right side of the car. Kenny's on his side, upside down, but well protected inside that cage.
And that's the bottom line. Kenny Bernstein is okay to race another day, and we are set to race right now. Gary Scelzi, Big Red Team Winston against Terry Mullins, an Oak Ridge, Tennessee veteran, himself a manufacturer, Mullins Motorsports. Gary Scelzi comes in as the number 6 qualifier. There's the number 11 qualifier, Terry Mullins.
This is a good example of kind of an independent against one of the best financed and well-run top fuel teams.
Red light for Terry Mullins. Give the win automatically to Gary Scelzi, 468 at 300 miles an hour. So Gary Scelzi with those numbers would likely have won any event, but I think Terry Mullins did what he felt he had to do, and that was guess at the light.
Well, I personally don't think that guessing's ever a good thing to do, because the chances of coming up with a good number are very, very slim. But you never know. He might have hit it right on and given Gary some trouble.
So Gary Scelzi will advance. And on the ladder here this weekend, Scelzi will meet the winner of Connie Coletta and Joe Amato. That is Tony Schumacher's tall car. The Park Ridge, Illinois veteran with his 330-mile-an-hour run earlier this season, still the talk of the garage. And that's Corey McLenithan. Corey from Anaheim, California. 2 semifinals and a final, and the win at Richmond in the last outing. They have gotten that team turned around. Watch this unique view on the burnout for the MB&A team.
You see how high those tires get. They actually are very, very thin on the sidewall, just a 1/16 of an inch thick. The tires are really not very heavy. And when the tire spins up, centrifugal force causes them to grow a lot. It's almost like a gear ratio change as the car gets to the finish line.
Steve Evans is down at the far end. Steve?
I am down here, and Gary Scelzi, anytime you can run within 200ths of your qualifying number, that's good first round.
You know what, Steve, it didn't feel that good. It knocked the tires loose pretty good there, and it was spinning them really hard. I'm surprised it went as quick as it did, but anytime I get to interview you for not going out first round is a good thing, trust me.
We've been doing that a lot this year, right, Eli?
Indeed so. Gary Scelzi lost in the first round at Pomona, at Phoenix, at Gainesville, didn't qualify at Houston, so This is a nice turnaround for him as Dan Olson and the crew do final preps on Tony Schumacher's machine. Mike Green, Jim Burson in the bunch doing the same for Corey Mack.
The drivers sit patiently back behind the start line. There's not much they're going to do at this point until the crew chiefs tell them to pull forward.
Problems.
What an unfortunate incident. Chief starter Rick Stewart went over and instructed him to shut the car off on the near lane.
So Corey Mack is done. There you see the reason for the shutdown. And it'll be a single for Schumacher. Hazes those tires at half track and shuts her on down. A 506, correction. 506 at 207 miles an hour. So Tony Schumacher ends up with the freebie right there. Bobby, what's the deal?
Well, Corey Mack is not a happy camper right now. And Corey, we understand the frustration. Do you know what the problem was?
Oh, I mean, we've had problems all morning. It's just been one of those days, you know, and then, you know, we had to work on it back there. It wasn't right. Come up here and get oil leak. What else can you do? Shut it off. You don't want to be unsafe.
Corey Mack, a good sport to talk with us, Steve. He's pretty hot.
Tony Schumacher down here. Interesting note, guys, in the booth. There has never been a repeat Top Fuel winner here at Atlanta, and there won't be today. Tony, you shut it off even though you really wanted lane choice.
Yeah, we wanted lane choice bad. When we knew we had the single, you know, I shallow staged. And I left the starting line, it left okay, but man, I tell you, it quivered out there and it felt like I was all over the place. And you know, you don't want to cross the center line. You can't afford to do something stupid. So when it starts to move around, you just shut it off. It's the way it is. But Exide's going around number 2.
He's probably going to be in that same lane in round 2. Bobby Gerald?
We're down here with crew chief Mike Green for Corey McLenithan. What happened there, Mike?
I'm not really sure. It had an oil leak, and I couldn't find where it was coming from, so we had to shut him off.
All right, disappointing, and we'll see you again somewhere down the road.
Indeed so. Englishtown, New Jersey, the next stop. What did they talk about? What did Tony mean, Frank, when he said shallow stage? You hear about shallow stage, deep stage. We'll talk all about that when we come back after the cleanup of the track here at the Atlanta Dragway. Just getting going. There's Steve Evans. He's finishing his quarter-mile run. We're back in a moment. Well, you talk about a picture and a million words. Body language says it all for Corey McLenithan, done for the weekend before even taking the green light. All right, quickly, name a race car driver. Who said Mario Andretti? Well, you're right. Mario Andretti has run every single thing you can imagine and has done it so very well. And that's why Speed Vision is going to be using Mario Andretti as the subject of their brand new Champion Series. A 1-hour in-depth look at Mario Andretti, the driver and the man. It's all narrated by Paul Newman. The champions, Mario Andretti, exclusively on Speed Vision tonight at 8 p.m. Eastern Time. Bob Vandergriff, the #1 qualifier. Bruce Sarver, the number 16 qualifier. We were talking before the break, Frank Hawley, about shallow staging, deep staging. What does that mean? Folks just think go till one light comes on, go till the next lights come on, and wait for the green. What's the technical talk?
Well, it's actually a pretty complicated thing, but as you move further forward in the staging beam, it can make your reaction time quicker, but your ET slower. And I don't believe the drivers should be deep staging. I think they're a little confused in what they're doing. You know, ought to always be going for lane choice because the difference in the ETs really won't make that much of a difference at the finish line.
At your driving school, that takes an hour and a half to explain. You've done it in 18 seconds. Well done. Congratulations. Vandergriff and Sarver here in round 1 of eliminations in Atlanta. Oh, my! The #1 qualifier is smoking. Sarver has problems. #1's going home on that pedal job by Bruce Sarver.
Boy, I'll tell you something. Bruce came out of racing a lot of short track stock cars in his early career, and maybe that spin in the tires helped him a little bit there. Really a driver contest. Bruce actually got a little further down the track than did Bob when he spun the tires, and that helped him a little bit. You'll watch as they leave the starting line. Vandergriff smokes the tires instantly. Sarver gets a couple, 3 car lengths further than does Bob, and that's going to make a big difference because when he gets off the throttle and back on the throttle to regain traction, the car's going much, much faster, and it's more likely to stick or to have better traction. And that's really a big, big break for Bruce.
Riding with Vandergriff. The numbers for Sarver, 6:14 at 162 miles an hour. Not pretty, but they don't give you style points in this business. There now is Connie Coletta getting set to go racing. Connie has not advanced past the first round all season long. He is Doug's uncle, who has already advanced. Doug did earlier, and that is Joe Amato. He and Snoopy, his longtime mascot, if you will, painted there alongside the driver's area, and that's the next matchup. What do you talk about? Years of veterans right there, Steve Evans, and you got Connie and you got Amato waiting. You got some veterans right going.
Well, I got a very disturbed Bob Vandegrift down here. Bob, the only problem with being #1 qualifier is maybe you're on the edge a little bit.
Well, we certainly didn't anticipate that. You know, we thought we were pretty safe and pretty conservative tune-up on that run, and you know, that's a shocker to go out first round like that. But, you know, we got a good team. We'll rebound, and we'll get them again next week.
The hometown fans are feeling his pain.
They are. They had about 150 guests from Jerseys here today, the sponsor, moving some of their corporate bigwigs from Alexander City, Alabama, to the Atlanta area, but not a whole lot of smiles in that bunch. Hey, look who's here. Joe Gibbs is in town, the coach with Bobby Gerald.
And he's down here visiting with some race fans. Joe, I'm sorry to interrupt your conversation here, but an interested owner, and it's already been a wild day so far.
Yeah, it's been a wild day. This thing is so sensitive. You got to be great in every round, and we left something off there. We had trouble all weekend.
All right, good to see you here, Joe. They're just firing them up. Eli.
Boy, oh boy, Bob Vandegrift just cannot believe that he has squandered the #1 qualifying spot. That's what makes this sport, or motorsports in general, less than friendly at times.
It's not very forgiving, is it, Eli?
No, it's not. No, it's not. You've seen it happen in all forms of motorsports where the odds-on favorite just gets taken out by whatever problem that's happened again here today. Joe Amato, 54 years of age. Connie Coletta, 60 years of age. #3 qualifier is Amato. We were talking yesterday on our qualifying show that the crowd was magnificent yesterday, and I don't know if it's possible for them to have crammed another person in today, but looks like this crowd is even bigger than yesterday's. Clearly the largest to ever see a day of racing here at the Atlanta Dragway.
Well, a lot of elements came together. You know, the NHRA Racing Series this year is full of excitement. It's really, the race has been fantastic. And then we've got just such beautiful weather here in Georgia this weekend. And I think when people see a nice weekend like this, getting out to an NHRA drag race is something that you'd want to do.
There is the 5-time Top Fuel champion right of your screen. An interesting look from just in the starter's box. The guy in that straw hat, Rick Stewart, he is the official starter for the NHRA. Amato and Connie Coletta. Good drag race. Amato gets the win with some smoke down the track. It'll be a 468 at 304 miles an hour. And regretfully for Connie, again, unable to get past the first round of eliminations.
Well, that's got to help a lot of the other drivers and crew chiefs back in line, because we've seen some pretty strange things happen on the racetrack today. And to get a good side-by-side race and another 460 in the right lane has got to give them some confidence in how good the traction is today.
So Joe Amato will advance. He will meet Gary Selzy in round #2. It's a solid run to the little hazing of the tires near the finish.
Well, you know, they're going to continue to have some problems further down track, but Amato's car looked like it was hooked up quite well down there. But no matter how good you set the car up today, you're going to have some slippery conditions at the other end.
And they drove it straight, Bob Gerald.
That's right. And Jimmy Prock, you'll meet up with Gary Selzy in the next round.
Yeah, that's a tough matchup, you know, but everybody's tough here. The cars are real close, and give it our best shot.
Congratulations.
So we move on now, as in the background you hear the firing of the Larry Dixon and Randy Park engines. Meanwhile, Steve Evans is with Joe Amato.
Quickly, Joe, I'd love to give you lane choice, but I can't. Selzy got it by 1,000 or so.
Well, it was one of them deals, you know. Just it's pretty important here, though. You know, I try to stage it a little shallow, because that's important to get lane choice, but that's when the tires looks like down track. Track slippery down there. They need to work on the track.
Just what Frank was talking about, shallow stage for lane choice.
Indeed so, as you see Randy Parks from Lombard, Illinois, the Fluke riding decal Top Fuel dragster. against the Miller Lite dragster for Larry Dixon, owned by Don the Snake Prudhomme.
Randy Parks was an alcohol dragster driver for a number of years, and that's kind of a good plateau to go from because they're very difficult cars to drive. They run very quick. They're 5-second, 250-mile-per-hour cars with 3-speed transmissions, and you see a lot of the good top fuel drivers came out of the alcohol dragster ranks.
10 years in Super Comp. This only his second year in top fuel. Of course, Larry Dixon, the man who has the quickest run at 4.486, the national elapsed time record. Dixon and Parks. Watch for the green light to see who has the reaction time edge. It's Parks. Smoke for Dixon. Parks is going on. How about that? Larry Dixon, the number 2 qualifier, is gone, as is the number 1 qualifier, Vandergriff. That's why you come to the track strip, because you just never know. Welcome back, everybody, to the Atlanta Dragway, where we have seen our share of upsets already. We'll see whether Eddie Hill can pull one off as well. Steve Evans, what a strange early day today.
Well, this man is loving it, Randy Parks.
It is
big upset.
This race is full of upsets. The track is tricky, you know, and Tony Schumacher came over to me. He says, you know, I need you to take Larry out for me so I can get a gain on this Winston Championship. I said, Tony, I've been on a diet all year trying to get my race car lighter. If you buy me a hot dog, you got it. So, hey, Tony, fire the grill up. I'm coming for my hot dog.
Mustard and relish, please.
You never know. Look at that. That was a surprise.
Well, yeah, there are some upsets today, and it's going to make a difference in the point standings.
It wasn't a fluke, though. That team has indeed been getting better. I couldn't resist. I couldn't resist.
Man.
Hey, folks, if you're looking for the world's best motorcycle racing, look no further than this very network, Speed Vision, because Sunday is the World Superbike Championship in Spain. Same-day coverage starting at 10 p.m. Eastern Time this evening. And remember, all season long, you like the action on 2 wheels, we've got it for you right here on Speed Vision. Getting set to go racing, there is Dale Armstrong looking on. One would assume still in disbelief. His man is done for the day as Eddie Hill and Jim Head get set to go. There's Eddie in the Pennzoil Top Fueler out of Wichita Falls, Texas. Jim Head, sponsored by Checker, Shucks, and Cragen.
You know, Dale Armstrong, a lot of times when a crew has a car smoke the tires like that, when they really didn't expect it to, you'll see the crew chiefs stand around and watch some of the other cars run to see if the conditions had changed a lot or if they just really messed up.
Eddie Hill says, hey, tell the folks about my new website, eddiehill.com. He's gone computer on us. Want to keep up with what he's cooking? eddiehill.com on the World Wide Web. A good drag race. Can Eddie hang on? Yes, he does. It didn't look pretty, but Eddie's going to take it with a 469, 291 miles an hour. The edge out of the lights went to Jim Head, but Eddie just came on and with the smoke and all kept on powering.
Yeah, this is, you know, Jim got a very good start. You'll see him leave the start line visually a little bit before Eddie's car. The car was accelerating well. Looked like it was going to be a closer race, I think, early on. But, again, had some problems down the mid-course. You can see Eddie's car on the far side of the racetrack spinning the tires. But Jim just didn't have the power or traction or a combination of both to catch him.
Eddie's been working on his ignition system here the last few weeks. He and Alfred, Al Weiss. And looks as though it's paid off, Steve.
Yeah, Eddie Hill's scrambling out of this car. I just went online, Eddie, to eddiehill.com. Get your hat off, buddy. And found out that you will have lane choice with a very nice 468.
468, excellent. That's just what we needed. Thanks, boss, and hello, second round with lane choice.
Well, it means a lot to him, huh, Bobby?
Al Weiss down here, and Eddie was just saying something about the lane choice there. You guys will have lane choice in the next round against Tony Schumacher.
Yes, we do, and we're happy for that. Ed was saying that right off the bat. Said, well, we need to be able to run at least better than a 505 to get in there, and he did exactly that.
All right, good job. We'll see you in the next one.
Well, good tune-up for Ed.
Indeed it was, and Alfred's been doing a lot of work on those ignitions, and it's obviously, as we said before, paying off. When we come back, Doug Herbert and Mike Dunn rolling on from Atlanta. Welcome back, everybody. Beautiful day here in Commerce, Georgia, about 40 miles outside of Atlanta, just off Interstate 85. A great look at the tower here at the Atlanta Dragway. And a good matchup coming up here as Darrell Gwynn looks on. Darrell said to me, he said, maybe you guys can help me in a search for a sponsor. Mopar is going away after this season. They got the word just the other day, and he says $2 million will make it work. I said, only $2 million? He said, we can run this team first class on $1.5 million to $2 million. So Darrell Gwynn, we've done the work. Let's see if who will step forward, because it was interesting to see Dunn's leading the points. They're having a great year, but Mopar has decided to force their marketing efforts in a different direction.
Well, you know, whether it's unfortunate or not that motorsports is expensive, it sounds like a couple $1 million is a lot of money to spend, but I don't know. I look at it from a driver's perspective, and I see how big motorsports has become in NHRA drag racing, and see companies spending a lot of money a lot of different places, and to be on the side of a team like this, on the side of that car, if I had a big company, I'd be looking at them.
Sure.
They're a great team.
Dick LaHaye in the foreground says, all right, Doug Herbert, let's go to work. Doug picked up the $100,000 No Bull Challenge win at Houston from a few weeks ago. Dunn in the Mopar. Herbert in the Snap-on machine. Reaction time to Herbert. Good drag race. Here comes Dunn, and he outpowers him at the end of the lane. 469, 291 miles an hour to the 482 at 299 for Doug Herbert. Mike Dunn gets the win.
You know, that's an excellent run. One of the things that makes that look so good was the fact that he was in the near lane, the lane that a lot of people say you can't run in. So that's one of the reasons you saw that crew so excited down there. A 469 in the supposed bad lane. And right here, about 1,000 feet where all the cars have been losing traction, Mike Dunn's car stays stuck to the ground and powers across the finish line.
And you see the skating for Doug Herbert at the same time. That cost him some, as the Dunn Bunch says. We got it done. Bobby Gerald.
Well, here's Darrell Gwynn, who is obviously very happy right now. And Darrell, they say you're not supposed to be able to win in that lane.
What a great tribute to that Team Mopar. What a heck of a job in the left lane. Really proud of them guys. You know, we're in the Winston Championship, and that's a really crucial win for us. I'm proud of them.
Steven?
Let's let them hear the burnouts. Mike Dunn, mission accomplished. You win in the left lane and get lane choice second round. You may want the left lane again.
Well, I tell you, Ken Vinny and this crew just does a great job. You know, we were just trying to race that lane. I thought it was toast. You know, I was obviously late, and Doug was out there. I saw a lot of that Snap-on car, and I thought it was over. And then about the middle of the track, you know, tried to spin a little bit and grab the brake and started picking him up. Obviously, he was having some trouble, but, you know, we'll take the win any way we can get it.
Mike Dunn.
The #1 man in points. As we are getting set to go, funny car racing now. That is Del Worsham on the near lane. All right, you folks know your geography. 2 weeks ago, the race was in Richmond, Virginia. This weekend, you're in Atlanta, Georgia. How do you go from Richmond to Atlanta? Easy, drive south. Not for this bunch. They went from Richmond to California to Phoenix to Atlanta. Kind of a little circuitous route, but they had Kristen Powell in one of their cars out in Phoenix. And Steve, they went out there to let her try and qualify for her funny car license.
Yeah, but there's a great story about Jerry Tolliver. He crashed here Friday night, not on the track, on the turnoff road. He ran into a wall head on and had to take off that Pontiac body and put on this Mustang body. But he says it drives much better, that this is kind of glad it happened.
He didn't qualify at Richmond, but he has turned it around with a #6 qualifying effort here, as Rob Flynn turning the wrenches on that WWF entry. And Del Worsham with his dad, Chuck, preparing the Checkers, Shucks and Cragen Pontiac. First round of eliminations in funny car. Problems for Tolliver. He'll just about rub the shiny off that machine. Del Worsham is going to advance 527 at 282 miles an hour. Don't know if Tolliver indeed did rub the wall, and if he didn't, he missed it by only that much.
Well, it looked like he touched it to me. Boy, he's being hard on bodies this weekend. Yeah. I wonder if he's got another one left.
It's got to be tough for a big man like Tolliver, too, to get comfortable in that race car. They were talking to me how they were trying to adjust his helmet and to help him fit better into the race car. Whatever it was, he found himself right up against the wall. Yeah, I believe he might have just got it, or at least kicked up the marbles.
Yeah, it probably folded up the headers a little bit on that side. What probably wasn't noticed is the excellent driving job that Dell did on the right side of the track right there, where he got off and on the throttle as the car left the starting line. It spun the tires. He detected that, eased off the gas, and back on it again, and made a pretty good run.
So Del Worsham will advance, Bobby.
Well, Rob Flynn obviously a little bit disappointed there. What happened?
Yeah, we're disappointed. The car dropped the cylinder right at the hit of the throttle, and after that it got out of shape, which is normal when they drop the cylinder.
All right, tough break for Jerry Tolliver, Steve Evans.
Not for this young man. That was about half car and half driver. Tremendous job.
I'll tell you what, thanks, Steve. It just rattled a little bit rather than taking a chance on it smoking or shaking. I said pedal it. Let's hope he makes a mistake. Checker Six Craig and Pontiac went down the track, and we are glad to be in second round.
Glad to see you, bud.
Good job right there for Del Worsham. Next up, Whit Bazemore and Ron Capps. They're waiting for you to come back, so hustle on back.
Get on it. Go, 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 go.
Welcome back, everybody. We continue from the Advance Auto Parts Southern Nationals. Hey, and if you enjoyed our coverage from Dallas a few weeks ago on here, don't forget NHRA on Speed Vision coming your way from Brainerd, Minnesota, from Reading, Pennsylvania, and Heartland Park in Topeka, Kansas. Racing's fastest sport on television's fastest network, Speed Vision. Our coverage continuing. Let's take a look at the top fuel ladders, as we've seen all the action that took place a short while ago. And the event right now will just continue racing as they're ready to get at it. That was Ron Capps. That was Whit Bazemore. Whit now calls Indianapolis home, but he's actually a 20-year resident of Atlanta. When he was a kid, his folks used to bring him up here on Friday and drop him off. He'd walk to a nearby hotel to spend the evening, walk back to the track, and they'd come back from Atlanta, pick him up on Sunday night, and take him home. He said, I used to hang around with Dale Puldee. I used to hang around with Kenny Bernstein. He said, I'm sure they thought I was a pain in the butt, he said, but that's how I learned this business.
Well, Whit's one of those guys that did everything it takes. He actually came down and started working for me at one of our shops, swept the floors, actually stayed at my house and slept in a spare bedroom because he didn't have a place to stay for the first month he was there. I've known Whit for years. A great guy and a great race car driver.
Are your rates competitive?
They were free for Whit.
There you go.
But we didn't pay him to work.
Whit Bazemore in the Kendall car, Ron Capps in the Copenhagen machine. Ron Capps, number 13 qualifier. They really need to show something here this weekend. It has not been a good 1999 for that group. See the pre-stage lights, and they'll crawl forward.
Just a few inches into the stage beams, and then the yellow lights will flash, and they're off.
A good drag race, but Capps goes up in smoke. Whit Bazemore is advancing with a 5:11, 282 miles an hour. Looked as though Capps was going to stay with him, if not pass him, but the smoke about 3/4 of the way down the track, and it was all over.
Well, I was talking with Whit yesterday, and he explained that if you don't have enough speed at half track, about 245 miles per hour, you're going to run the risk of having the clutch come in and spin the tires at that point. Now, Whit was at 235 at half track. He still smoked the tires. Whit said if you're down around in the 220s, he says you're never going to make it the rest of the racetrack, and that's exactly where Ron Capps was down at 222 miles per hour. As the clutch comes in, it's going to start to spin the tires, and you're all done.
Back to the starting line, Bobby.
Tim Richards, a big win there in the first round.
We're real happy with it. You know, we'd sooner not be Capps. He's our teammate on the Chevrolet deal, but sooner or later, he's going to beat us, I can tell you right now.
Steve?
Well, we saw some dragsters win in that left-hand lane, but it's much more critical for funny cars. Great job with a 511.
Oh, that's super. You know, that's Tim and Kim and this whole Kendall Chevy Camaro team. Tell you what, that's Don Perdome's team. Ron Capps, they're awfully good. They're struggling this year, but that's the second race in a row we've had them in the first round, and we're plenty worried, man. Plenty worried.
He handled them.
Indeed he did. As you see Scotty Cannon on the right of your screen and the #1 qualifier Tim Wilkerson on the left of the screen. We've talked about Wilkerson time and again. He has done everything but win in his career. And of course Scotty Cannon, Steve, he had to struggle just to make the field here this weekend.
Well, a lot of people travel a ways to see this man. This is the first time he's raced for NHRA in his home country, the South, from the Carolinas. He gave away 10,000 of the racer handouts over the course of these 3 days. I mean, this place has just been mobbed with his fans from his pro-modified days.
He used to drive the killer red Tomato. Now that he stepped up to Nitro, that's the Nitro Mater. That is Tim Wilkerson driving for John Costanza.
Tim's another one of the drivers that came out of the alcohol ranks, alcohol funny cars, and then graduated to the nitro cars. He's doing a great job.
A career best for Wilkerson of 491. That's he in the JCIT car. And that exotic Oakley paint scheme, that is Scotty Cannon. Both up in smoke. It's a pedal job. Cannon gets hooked up, and goodbye to the #1 qualifier. You won with a 723 at 201 miles an hour. And again, not pretty, but Cannon goes on, and the #1 qualifier, as we said at the opening of the show, becomes a spectator.
Upsets continue in funny car. Now, as they left the starting line and both lost traction immediately, they get off the accelerators, back on again. Tim Wilkerson continues to smoke the tires. You'll watch here as they leave very early tire smoke for both drivers. As they get off the accelerator and back on, Tim's car continues to smoke. He's trying to do the best job he can. Somehow, Scotty Cannon does a nice job here. I don't know if it caused damage to the engine and it didn't have enough power to continue to smoke the tires, or if he was careful enough with that accelerator pedal to not cause tire smoke. But whatever he did, it looked like a surprise to the crew. They couldn't see because of all the tire smoke.
Bobby Gerald.
Dale Pulte, I know you probably couldn't even see as he was pedaling it down there, but you got rid of #1.
Kept looking for that light and everything, and Scotty saved us. And we've had a couple lucky deals that happened to us this weekend. You never know. We got by first round, and that's what we needed to do.
Luck is a good thing, Steve Evans.
First time this year we've seen this man smile, Scotty Cannon. How did you do that?
Man, I have no idea. This thing smoked the tires when I left. I said, I'm done. I looked and I seen Wilkerson smoking the tires, so I got back on and I'm like, don't hit it too hard, it's going to smoke them again. So I just like, I guess we pitter-patted down there. We got lucky, man. This luck's all I can tell you.
The key was don't hit it too hard that second time.
A lot of you folks may not know that when Frank Hawley drove the Chi-Town Hustler, he had that same kind of haircut.
You think knowing Austin Coyle, you've met Austin Coyle, he'd let me drive his car with a haircut like that?
I don't think so, but hey, whatever it looks like, Scotty Cannon's advancing to the second round. All right, Cruz Pedregon, defending winner of this event against Scott Weiss from Ashland, Virginia. A mechanic against a full-time racer right here. Cruz's team has Joe Gibbs here. We saw him earlier on the show. Another team that really needs a win.
Well, yeah, see, what happens is everybody needs a win, of course, but when you see those big-name teams, big-name mechanics, big-name drivers, and sponsors, you kind of expect these guys to do better than the average racer. And that puts a lot of pressure on them. They've got all this equipment, all this backing, but you look in the other lane at basically an unsponsored car.
A privateer.
Yeah, there's a lot of pressure and a lot to lose to those guys.
His career best run on the near lane for Scott Weiss was a 5:29. The best speed he's ever turned, 278 miles an hour, paling to Cruz Pedregon's numbers. Well, Cruz had some problems, but still had enough to take it down the road. 5:17, 271 miles an hour. So not really a surprise right there, but little work to be done for the cruiser as he gets set for the next round of eliminations here in Atlanta. That is John Force. See all that smoke from the burnout into the driver's compartment.
You notice him working the steering wheel back and forth. Yep. It's a lot like driving on ice when those rear tires are spinning, and it's not quite as easy to handle that car as possible. Also, with that smoke in the cockpit, if you do real long burnouts near the end of the burnout, you can't even see the racetrack.
A Dean Scusa kind of burnout, if you will. Frank Pedregon is in the other lane. John Force, now you want to go back. You want to back up in that exact tire track that you just made your burnout in.
Yeah, exactly, which should be in the center of the groove, the best area of traction, and that's why the drivers can't see that real clearly, and that's why they all have the crew chiefs or a crew member out in front of them guiding them carefully back so that they can get in that spot, the best traction, so they can accelerate down the racetrack.
New 5-disc clutch for that team right there. Frank Pedregon, new design, Brad Anderson heads. Of course, John Force has Austin Coyle and Bernie Federley. No new design there. It just works. See Austin staying right there, looking over to see what Frank's up to. They give him that familiar OK sign, and we're set to go racing. John Force, number 3 against number 14 qualifier Frank Pedregon. Frank smokes it. John's going on. 499 at 295 miles an hour. That's getting down the road.
Well, they're the guys, without a doubt, to come out and run in the 4s on a day like this when everybody's so skeptical of the track. I think it puts fear into the hearts of the other crew chiefs and drivers.
499, 295 miles an hour. Frank Pedregon with a 514. Had himself a good run going.
If it hadn't been against John Force, that 514 on the left side could have beat just about anybody else in funny cars so far.
He's gotten spanked today, Bobby.
Austin Coyle getting ready to go down and check on his driver. And Austin, a win's a win. You're moving on.
Well, that's right. It looks like we finally got the combination right for this really slippery racetrack, and looks pretty good so far. Maybe we can do it again.
All right, Steve Evans down at the far end.
You know, we knew yesterday afternoon when John ran a 5:02 down the left-hand side that this was a 4-second Mustang once it got in that right lane, and we were absolutely right, John. Nice lap.
Good old Hot Rod. All we had to do is get her over there and really keeping our eye on Pedregon. I know those guys are really aggressive, and he went after me, but we're excited. And kind of like I told Bazemore yesterday, it ain't about old and ugly. It's about just a good old Hot Rod. That's all it takes.
I never add anything to his energies, Eli.
How can you? So John Force is advancing. Next matchup will be Jim Epler. There is that new C5 Corvette, a brand new body for that team that is 30 pounds lighter than the old Corvette body. 30-pound difference because of Bondo, if nothing else. There's Phil Burkhardt. He has pulled the lucky number in the No Bull Challenge. If he wins the race today, he's got a $100,000 bonus from Winston on the line.
Well, he's got a tough challenge ahead of him to win in a field like this. He, you know, not a new driver to the sport, but it's a relatively new team to Nitro Funny Car Racing. But if they could win, what an exciting day. Not only did they win their first race ever, but they got that bonus money, too. So this could be one of the most exciting days he's ever had at a drag race.
In Dallas, he lost to Cruz Pedregon, Burkhardt. 2 weeks ago in Richmond, he beat Del Worsham in the first round, but then lost to the same man. Similar matchup with Jim Epler in round number 2. Burkhardt, 17th in points, turned 31 yesterday, by the way. So if he could win that No Bull Challenge, he'd be able to buy himself a nice little birthday gift for $100,000. And there you see the Easy Care crew going to work. And again, we said a new body, 30 pounds lighter. The old one was cracked. It had been bondoed, a lot of body filler. Well, we just couldn't keep that going. He said that's a deficit after a while.
Well, they're the first ones to have a Corvette body, so it's kind of been an evolution as they've changed the shape of it.
That's just an interesting paint scheme there on that Pontiac Firebird. Not so much a unique body, but an interesting paint scheme. See what we can do. Phil Burkhardt, near lane, Yorkville, New York, against Phoenix, Arizona's Jim Epler. Burkhardt with the hole shot. Epler with the power. 5:05 for the Corvette. 273 miles an hour. The difference is 3/100ths at the start on the hole shot, and then Epler just outpowered him down the quarter mile.
Well, I'll tell you, if you look at the run that Burkhardt made, a 5:10 on the left side of the racetrack at 292, and you combine that with his better reaction time, the margin of victory is just over 1/100th of a second. The closest race we've seen so far. can't see the difference as they take off from the start line. It looks about dead even, but Burkhart was out by about 0.03 of a second. In the middle of the course, it looked like Epler was really moving away, but Burkhart's car charges at the finish line and almost catches him.
Trying to get a look at Epler there and see if all 8 cylinders stay alive for the full quarter mile. He said he hasn't made a single run on all 8. Nope, I don't believe they stayed alive the whole quarter mile. We'll find out. Bobby Gerald?
Mike Kobler, they were questioning whether you kept all 8 on that run.
No, we weren't on all 8 the whole run. We're real fortunate to make a quick enough. We think that we're in the top 10 of points. We're real close. We're moving up.
I have no idea what he just said. It's a little loud down here, Steve.
Jim Epler, great job, and some fire out of the pipes on the right-hand side, and what a close drag race.
Oh, well, I tell you, that Paul Groton team is going to be tough. They go down the track every time, but this is our easy care race. Everybody's here, so we needed to hold my foot down when it was really hurt, and I hate doing that, but hey, that's what the sponsors are for, you know.
Man does what he has to do.
Indeed, 150 folks from Easy Care were here yesterday, another 150 here today, and watch this margin of victory. Just enough to advance on for Jim Epler. That is Tony Pedregon racing Dean Scusa. While Bobby Gerald was talking before, you heard Scusa do one of his patented burnouts. He stopped somewhere near Greenville, South Carolina, and he's just now getting back. And Tony Pedregon, Tony's number 7 qualifier this weekend. Dean Scusa, Ronnie Swearingen and the boys, number 10 qualifiers.
You know, I start thinking about John Force having to race Pedregons, and he has to race an entire field of Pedregons.
Yeah.
I think that we look at a lot of the other types of motorsports in the country, and we see a lot of families, a lot of brothers getting involved, and it's great to see somebody like this carrying on a tradition, because Frank Pedregon, their dad, was a great drag racer.
Indeed he was. If you're new to the sport, that car you're looking at there, the Syntec machine, on the far side is owned by John Force. Near side, the Matco Tools entry for Dean Scusa. Should be a good matchup here. Should-is and could-is, and the win goes to Pedregon. 5:09, 284 miles an hour. So Tony Pedregon advances, as did the boss, John Force. Coverage of the NHRA Winston Championship is being brought to you by Mopar. Parts for Chrysler, Plymouth, Dodge, and Jeep vehicles from the dealerships that sell and install them. That's the Mopar difference. And by Hooters Restaurants. Delightfully tacky, yet unrefined. Welcome back. That's Mr. Delightfully Tacky to my left. I'm Mr. Unrefined. Glad you're with us.
What a team.
Eli Gold, Frank Hawley, Steve Evans, Bobby Gerald, and the entire Speed Vision crew here at Atlanta. Al Hoffman and Peanut, Dale Creasy Jr. set to go racing. The guy who has his own picture on the hood of the car. I like that. Isn't that a nice touch for Dale Creasy Jr., the Mad Magazine Firebird. Al Hoffman, of course, unsponsored. That 99 Pontiac Firebird of his, tuned by Jimbo Ermolovich. He says, everybody calls me Ermolovich. He says, my name is really Ermolovich. I said, hey, it's your name. God bless you. I'll call you whatever you'd like. Family's from Kiev, Poland, now Kiev, Russia, via Lithuania, through the coal fields of West Virginia. That's how they got here. In case it comes up in conversation at home, you know the background on Jimbo Ermolovich. Let's see what they can do. Al Hoffman, number 8 qualifier. Dale Creasy Jr., number 9. Neither team with spectacular seasons going. Both need a win here today. 3 stage lights. Now they're staged. Al is in. There goes Al skating. Peanuts advancing. Al Hoffman had it early, but couldn't hang on when he lost a cylinder and headed towards the wall. 5:32 for Dale Creasy Jr., 269 miles an hour. One of his slower runs of the weekend, but he doesn't care.
Well, you know, neither of those cars performed as well as they thought they wanted to, but it's some good close racing. And it really doesn't make a difference to these guys as long as you get by the first round. You hear a lot of the drivers talk about, well, at least we're in the second round, because it gives them an opportunity to go back, talk with their crew chiefs, look at the computer data, make some assessment of it, and make some changes to improve the performance for the next round of competition.
Watch the left of the lane there. There's Al coming towards the center lane. He worked that quarter mile is what he did, but Dale Creasy Jr. gets the win.
These shots from the end of the racetrack are great because you can see how much the drivers are having to steer the cars back and forth.
Bobby?
Well, Dale Creasy Sr., what kind of adjustments do you make now for round 2?
Well, we get lane choice, so we'll try to step it up just a little bit, but it's slick in both lanes, really. It's hard to get down this track. They need to change some asphalt here. Graham needs to step up a little.
Some words from Dale Creasy Sr. Steve?
As Alfred E. Newman always says, what, me worry? Lane choice? No problem.
I got lane choice? Oh boy, this Mad Magazine Pontiac is running good this weekend. We finally figured out a slick track tune-up, and I think we got him this weekend.
You blowed it up yesterday.
Yeah, I heard it yesterday, but I had to get us in the show. I don't like sacrificing them, but to get in the show, I'll do whatever I have to do.
Dale Creasy.
Let's talk about this racetrack again, Frank Hawley. The fact that the asphalt is somewhat porous here, what does that mean in layman's terms, and what are these teams dealing with? Because a lot of tracks, you run where it's 80 degrees.
Well, yeah, it's not just the temperature. There's a lot of things about asphalt that we don't even know, but we do know that the track's kind of slippery. When they're talking about porosity, it means that you can actually see some small cracks around the gravel and stuff that's in the asphalt, and of course that means that the tires not contacting the surface. Now, what we're looking at here is the starting line. That's pretty good because that's concrete and it's rubber on top of that concrete, and the traction's pretty good down there. But as you get down the other end of the track, there's a few bumps and it's kind of porous, and the cars can spin the tires.
NHRA officials checking out the conditions of the quarter mile here in Commerce. So we're going to break away for just a moment. You won't miss a thing unless you tune away. Don't do that. Set to go racing for the Pro Stocks of NHRA. Welcome back to the Atlanta Dragway, everybody. Alan Johnson and Mark Howick set to go. Hey, quick reminder, coming up next week, NASCAR's All-Star Race, the Winston, from the Lowe's Motor Speedway outside of Charlotte. Qualifying coming up on Friday night, then a replay on Sunday afternoon, all coming up right here on Speed Vision, America's fastest network. Mark Howick finds himself 11th in points right now. Hasn't won an event since back in Memphis in 1995 against the guy in the near lane, Alan Johnson, the winner 2 weeks ago in Richmond. This is Pro Stock, first round eliminations. Taking their time, the stage.
A lot of these Pro Stock drivers like to play some games up there.
Look at Rick Stewart.
Yeah, he's telling them to stage. There's a perceived idea that if you're last into stage, you have an advantage, and I'm not sure if that's true or not.
Finally get in. Mark Howick, the cowboy, is riding off into the range as Alan Johnson has problems near half track. 696 for Howick, 199 miles an hour. There you see the numbers on the Summit Racing Pontiac.
That's a great run for Mark, but boy, he dodged a bullet there because Alan Johnson had 0.07 of a second advantage in reaction time on the starting line.
That's Steve Schmidt in the Dynagear machine against John Nobile, who we met earlier in the show. Remember his visit with Steve Evans. Schmidt from Indianapolis, Nobile from on Long Island and Melville, New York.
Steve Schmidt has been to the winner's circle many, many times in his career in a lot of different types of vehicles. John's got a tough competitor here.
There is John Nobile. He's in the near lane. Schmidt across the way. 3 career wins, and he's been to 7 finals. Schmidt has been. Reaction time edge to Schmidt. And the win to Schmidt as Nobile shuts it down. 7:30 for Steve Schmidt, 171 miles an hour. At half track, Nobile shut it down. He was only at 116 miles an hour. He had problems and he knew it.
Well, yeah, it's the problems they have with these cars are maybe not quite as obvious as the ones with the nitro cars. These are very difficult cars to drive. They're short wheelbase. You've got 5-speed transmission. The cars are quite touchy. They don't go sideways real well, or they just start rolling over. And if the drivers detect any problems, tires shake, the car's moving left or right, a lot of times that's not very detectable to us up here, but it certainly is noticeable to the driver, and they feel like they need to quit.
Number 3-point man, Troy Coughlin. He'll square off against Greg Anderson, Warren Johnson's old crew chief. Anderson still looking for his first visit to a final round. What are they measuring there, Frank?
You see the crew chief back measuring the wheelie bar height, which is a crucial part of the suspension, right on the starting line. They don't want to do it back in the pits because it might not be the same.
With a good jump. Anderson is going to take it all the way. Got out of the lights in a hurry and just keeps on motoring a 698, 198 miles an hour. The reaction time was a 44 to a 48 for Coughlin.
Yeah, good side-by-side 6-second racing. You're going to see a lot of that in the pro stock category. There's a few reasons. One is they've got suspensions and shocks and a lot of things they can adjust to accommodate these race cars to this racetrack. And also, they don't make quite as much horsepower, so they're not likely to get down at 800 or 900 feet down the track and then suddenly lose traction.
500 cubic inch engines, 6-gallon fuel cells, if you're curious, on those pro stocks, as George Marnell and that man, Mike Edwards, gets set to go. Mike Edwards on that race car of his has an 800 number. Can't see it from that shot, but it's emblazoned off on the back of the automobile. He's from Oklahoma, and he has an 800 number on the car that folks can call to help out the Oklahoma Tornado Disaster Relief Fund, 800-525-7575. You see it right there on the back window. That's that toll-free number that Mike said, hey, I'm from Broken Arrow, Oklahoma. We got to help those folks who are just decimated by the tornadoes a few weeks ago. 800-525-7575 against George Marnell. Good race. Edwards will race again, 699 at 197 miles an hour. And that's out on the left lane too, Frank.
Yeah, Marnell had some problems on the starting line. He was 0.12 of a second late leaving against Edwards, and that's just almost impossible to make up on the racetrack.
Knoxville, Tennessee's Mike Thomas against Kurt Johnson. We've talked so much this weekend already about this being the Johnson's home track. He, Kurt, and his dad Warren, all those fans, many of them from Georgia, pulling for that family. They test here as many as 3 times a week, yet he's only the number 14 qualifier. And you heard he and Steve talking earlier in this day. Sometimes just can't quite figure things out.
Well, you know, Kurt had made a reference earlier to Dale Earnhardt getting rough starts and then finishing up well. We're going to find out if it makes a difference right now. The qualifying positions, you can be way back in qualifying and only be 200ths off of the #1 qualifier. But when it comes down to the race, you can make that 200ths of a second up in reaction time on the starting line. So the qualifying position in pro stock isn't as important as it might be in some other categories when it comes to race day.
What is important is that Kurt Johnson is leading pro stock in points, and he wants to hang on to that. You got to win races. You got to win rounds to keep it all going together. Johnson on the right. Mike Thomas in the Pennzoil machine on the left.
See if they've got any staging games going on now. Thomas goes in.
Reaction time, Kurt Johnson. The win to Mike Thomas. Johnson with problems, and Mike Thomas gets the win at a 698, 198 miles an hour. Just underway in pro stock, and you are with us. Speed Vision returns in a moment. Welcome back, everybody. Atlanta Dragway, Commerce, Georgia, filled to capacity. They were saying that yesterday's crowd was the second largest crowd in all the history of this racetrack, and today even bigger. They have shoehorned folks in here on this magnificent day here in the Peachtree State. Well, Steve, Kurt Johnson didn't win. Does Tom Martino have a chance to upset the professor?
Oh, the way Tommy drives, absolutely. Understand, as much as they test here, Warren has won 3 times, but not since 1993. That's a long drought on your home track.
And Martino there in the foreground made the Holly Pro Stock Dominator duel. That's going to be run next week at Englishtown, New Jersey, which is his home track. That's kind of like the Big Bud Shootout for the Pro Stock cars. And that's going to be run at Englishtown, New Jersey next weekend. So he was just tickled to qualify and barely did at number 16. And Warren Johnson, second in points, number 1 qualifier this weekend at a 690.
Here we go with the Pro Stock guys again. Nobody wants to pull into the starting lines. Warren goes first.
Warren Johnson, not known for reaction time, but he powers down the track. Martino got the reaction time, but it didn't matter. I mean, Warren was just strong. 690, 201 miles an hour.
That's a phenomenal performance. 201 miles per hour today. I don't think Warren could be complaining about this racetrack a whole lot.
Again, you just got to know where it all is. There's the guy who's up for grabs in the Winston Noble Challenge for Pro Stock. Second time this year Jim Yates has had his name called. Didn't win it at Richmond, and he said in pre-race ceremonies today, hey, it worked for the second time his name was pulled for Doug Herbert earlier this year. Said maybe those monies will be mine. Steve?
Warren Johnson coming out of the car. We had to talk to him after that unbelievable blast. He saw Kurt go out 690, 201.
It's pretty good for these conditions out here. I'm awful proud of this team that put this car together. We missed a little bit with Kurt's program this weekend, but he'll be back.
He's back.
I bet he will. Warren's not gone anywhere. He's still around. Jim Yates and Bruce Allen. Reaction time, Yates. The win for Yates as Bruce Allen has problems. Jim Yates, 694, 198 miles an hour. Never really a drag race.
Well, no, and Bruce's car, as it left the starting line, you saw the back end wiggle around from side to side. You just can't stay on the power and drive one of these Pro Stock cars like that when it's not handling properly. You'll end up with an accident. And the drivers who get off the throttle early enough are the ones that are the real veterans. They know what to do.
That was the kid, Richie Stevens, all of 20 years old, from New Orleans, Louisiana, against Pasadena, Texas's Mike Trumbull in the Dick Sherman 99 Firebird.
Richie started racing when he was 16 years old in the super gas category, and the first time he ever got in a race car, he looked like he'd been there for years.
And Trumbull, no slouch either. He was the number 2 qualifier at Houston. The number 15 qualifier here, but at least he's in the field against Richie Stevens.
They call him the kid because he's just 20. That's a kid compared to Warren and some of these other guys, right?
It's a kid compared to me. I promise you that. Won the 1998 Winston Finals. Runner-up this year at Richmond to Alan Johnson just a couple of weeks ago. Trumbull staying with him, but not long enough. Give the win to the kid. 693, 198 miles an hour. They are about half track, just past it, and then finally Stevens has had that little extra power kick in. Let's go to the far end, Steve Evans.
Jim Yates is going to like his time slip because you duplicated your qualifying effort with the 696, and that's good.
Well, I tell you, we really feel great about, in the heat of the day today like it is, I think we've really got this thing running really great. And right now we got a car on fire over here.
Well, let's pan over and see if there's a fire. It doesn't appear to be anything serious. Jim Yates goes to the second round, as does Richie the Kid Stevens. Little header fire. That's pretty common down here.
Indeed it is at the far end with Steve Evans. When we come back, we'll put wheels away and we'll do a little two-wheeling racing for you. The Pro Stock Motorcycles next. If you like your action on two wheels, you have come to the right place. Speed Vision and Pro Stock Bikes here at the Southern Nationals outside of Atlanta. That's Steve Johnson. Got to put sunglasses on just to look at him.
He's always had some pretty good paint jobs on his vehicles.
He's 5th in points. Near lane Larry Cook tied for 8th in points right now going into this event. Cook from Oregon. Johnson from Alabama. Good side-by-side drag race. Steve Johnson gets the win at 7:35, 182 miles an hour. So Steve Johnson with Ward Motorsports, a team based out of Minnesota, he will advance. Next matchup, Ron Ayers right there riding for Mack Tools, and the Sunoco Suzuki for David Schultz. Suzuki is the bike of choice basically in this series.
Well, yeah, you know, they get a combination that works quite well, makes a lot of horsepower, and is specifically designed for these, and they've got a lot of background, Suzuki does, in this particular category.
There's the #1 all-time winner in this series, David Schultz, 42 career wins against Greenville, North Carolina's Ron Ayers, the winner in 1993 last time. The win to Schultz, made it up at the far end of the racetrack. 7:34, 182 miles an hour for the Sunoco Suzuki. Their burnouts done basically in place versus the cars we've been watching. Fred Camarena and Matt Hines set to go.
You know, these are probably the most difficult vehicles to drag race. They run in the low 7s. They accelerate very, very hard. You aren't strapped into anything. You don't have a roll cage. You leave the starting line at 9,000 RPM. You shift at 12,500 RPM. You've got 4 shifts, a 5-speed transmission, and it doesn't steer like a normal street bike. You have to use a little body English, lean left to right to get it to go where you want to.
Hines, the winner here a year ago for Vance and Hines Racing. That is Fred Camarena from Placentia, California, for Baxter Motorsports. Hines is away. And as they say in the court of law, nolo contendere, no contest. 7:29. 185 miles an hour. Matt Hines will advance, no surprise. The #2 qualifier taking out number 15 here today.
You know, Matt had a .403 reaction time, which is really good. A 400's perfect, but he probably doesn't even want a reaction time that good because it's a 4 thousandths away from a red light, which would give him a loss in the first round.
Chris Reuter against the #1 qualifier, Angel Sealing for Team Winston. Reuter sponsored by Harvest Homes. You met her earlier in our show. Young lady, 27 years of age. That's a lot of machine for her to control too, and does it so very well. She won at Gainesville. 6 career wins.
Yeah, Angel has been around motorcycle racing most of her life, but has always aspired to be a pro stock motorcycle racer in NHRA.
She has the ET national record of a 7:21. Here we go. Reuter with the whole shot. Doesn't matter. 7:28, 187 miles an hour. Not far off for national ET record. Good run for Angel Sealing, the #1 qualifier again this week. Advances. We're coming right back. More on Speed Vision from the Atlanta Dragway. Welcome back, everybody. The Advanced Auto Parts Southern Nationals coming your way here on Speed Vision. Mario Andretti, the man, the champion, and the subject of a brand new show right here on Speed Vision. Champions, all narrated by the man, Paul Newman. He left Joanne Woodward at home that day. He did the show himself. Tonight, 8 p.m. Eastern Time, learn all about Mario, who indeed was a drag racer, Frank, in his formative years.
That was before my time, but I remember seeing it in some magazines.
That is going to be a bye run for John Smith. Hector Arana could not answer the bell. There he is as he pushes his bike back towards the pit area. 7:34 for John Smith, 182 miles an hour. So the runner-up in Gainesville has advanced. Now a good matchup. Gary Tonglet and Greg Underdahl will be squaring off right here. Underdahl, the number 4 qualifier. Tonglet at number 13. For these competitors, they're happy, though it's warm. There's not much wind today. These boogers are handfuls when you got some crosswind going.
Yeah, they tend to lean the bike over rather than just shift it to the side, and that can't be very comfortable for these riders.
Gary Tonglet heading towards the lane.
You'll see the riders, as they pull to the starting line, they will look back to check with their crew chiefs to see if the bike is perfectly aligned. Then the crew chief will walk up, turn on the computer, and when he's got it turned on, he'll usually give him a little slap on the bottom to let the rider know that everything's been ready for the run.
There are yellow lights on the dashboard. When they flash, the rider hits a button which basically shifts gears on these bikes. Power to burn for Greg Underdahl, 7:36. 182 miles an hour sends Gary Tonglet packing. That is Brian Ayers for Mac Tools, his Suzuki, and Tony Mullen, the Team 23 Suzuki GSXR. If you're into Suzukis, that's the model that most of these competitors use.
Of course, they don't have any reverse gear in a motorcycle, so you see after that little dry burnout across the starting line to clean the tire off, the crew chiefs or crew member will go out and push the motorcycle back behind the starting line.
Brian Ayers, 12th in points in the near lane. Tony Mullen, 10th in points there for Team 23. Look at that crowd. They have just come flocking in.
And they've seen some exciting things happen today.
They could leave now and they've gotten their money's worth, but they're not leaving. All 5 pro categories here this weekend. Tony Mullen throws an extra coal on the fire, gets there. Brian Ayers had him out of the box, but Mullen seemed to go in an overdrive there near the finish. 7:41, 180 miles an hour for his Suzuki. That is Antron Brown, most recent winner on the circuit at Dallas. He will race against Craig Treble. Antron is second in points behind Angel Seeling. Treble currently 8th in pro stock bikes.
Eli, you'll see most of the riders on these bikes tend to be small because you have to weigh a certain amount with the rider on the bike. Even though it's an even weight when you go to the starting line, it's better to have a smaller rider, and then you can move the weight around on the vehicle for optimum performance.
600 pounds minimum. And you want to get as close to it. Most teams are within 10 to 15 pounds of that 600. An even start, Antron Brown. A 7:37 to a 7:41, 183 miles an hour. Good drag race there. Antron Brown will advance with that win light. Steve, some good competition in this series and only its second full year. Well, actually,
absolutely. And I just asked George Bryce, who prepares this bike for Angel Sealing, how much of their consistency is the rider, and he said all of it.
Yeah, it's not too easy. That's got to be the hardest part. The guys back at Star Racing do a good job getting this team Winston Suzuki to go fast, but you know, I'd say the hardest part is shifting on time, going straight, holding the throttle wide open. And I'm putting a lot of pressure
Takes your breath away.
Yeah, I'm putting a lot of pressure on myself to do a good job for them, but I sure am having a whole lot of fun.
And so is Matt Hines. Where are you, Matt? Here's Matt. Champion last year, champion the year before, but she's 100th quicker than you are run after run.
Yeah, you know, we're still working on our tune-up. They've had that bike for the last 2 years, and we got a brand new one. We're just trying to find the setup, and once we get it, I think we're going to be a contender.
I'm sure you will be, Eli.
And I said second full year. I should have said 12th year. The series dates back to when Dave Schultz was champion back in 1987. This is the second full year for the Pro Stock trucks that are also here at the Atlanta Dragway this weekend. And speaking of trucks, we're going trucking when we come back in a moment. Coverage of the NHRA Winston Championship is being brought to you by Mopar. Parts for Chrysler, Plymouth, Dodge, and Jeep vehicles from the dealerships that sell and install them. That's the Mopar difference. And by Hooters Restaurants. Delightfully tacky, yet unrefined. Well, I'll tell you, it's been quite an exciting opening round. And you and I were talking earlier this morning. I said, you think we'll see some upsets? You said, count on it.
Well, we've seen a lot of upsets. We've seen cars upset with Kenny Bernstein flipping right upside down. So wheels flying off, a lot of action out there in the drag strip today. Tires smoking at a finish line 1,000 feet down the racetrack. Certainly something you wouldn't want to miss.
And Steve Evans, you probably visited with some folks you really didn't expect to be visiting with, did you?
Yeah, it's been pretty staggering, actually. Troy Vincent, number 23 of the Philadelphia Eagles, was in the tower to watch his man, Antron Brown, get through the first round. But you're going to have to pick it up, Antron. That 736, not so good.
Yeah, we had a little problem. We bogged a little bit off the line, but it's a new engine, and we're working all the bugs out, so we're going to be ready for the next round.
Now, they don't just have one bike, they have two. We'll move over here and talk to Tony Mullen. Tony, you also got through round number one, but you're looking for more performance as well.
Yeah, it's basically a new bike and a new motor, and Harry's getting a setup on the clutch, and we spun pretty bad. There's a lot more in it.
What's it like working with a professional athlete like Troy?
Oh, it's great. He gives me a lot of confidence, and he's a good friend. He's just a wonderful person, and I love working with him.
And he's also a great athlete, Eli.
Indeed he is. Alongside me is another great athlete, of course, Frank Hawley. Downstairs, Bobby Gerald, who may be at home in Sacramento, is a great athlete also. Who knows?
I don't know, Eli. We're down here, though, in a very happy, funny car pit right now. Dale Poldy is the man that you just looked at. He joined Scotty Cannon's team about 4 races back, and Scotty Cannon has advanced to the second round for the very first time this season. First time in his career in the nitro-burning funny cars, and you beat the #1 qualifier in a kind of pedaling contest, I guess you would call it.
Well, you know, it's pretty nasty out there. The heat's out, and Atlanta isn't really known for being one of the better hooking tracks. You know, we squeezed in the show last night after the first round, and, you know, went a 34 with a 0 and bumped the other guy by 7,000. And here we are, first round. We haven't run the bad dogs. And I think, you know, I left the track, I left the line, it smoked the tires, and I looked over, I said, darn, he's smoking the tires too. It's like pedal, pedal, pedal. I think 13 times was off and on the throttle. You know, the wind light came on. It's, you know, they said it's like a driver's, you know, dream to win. But, you know, the team does a good job. Dale Poldy, you know, he said, I said, what's it going to do? He said, I have no idea what it's going to do. He said, man, he said, just stand on it, drive safe, and be careful. And what can I say, man? We're just glad to be here.
He'll have Creasy Jr. in the next round.
And he does have Peanut in round number 2, and that certainly is winnable on both sides. You want to find out exactly what happens? Keep your remote controls handy. We'll see how good you are on your reaction time on the remote control. 6 p.m. Eastern time today. More of the NHRA Southern Nationals and right here at the Atlanta Dragway. Frank Hawley, lane choice. We've talked so much about it. Is it a major story or not? It's almost looking as though it's so unpredictable. Who knows?
Well, I'll tell you, the track can be different from side to side. You try and set it up, but one of the things I noticed in years of racing with Austin Coyle is you'd go out and you'd watch the good cars run, and they might be on the right side of the track, so you'd end up thinking, that's the right side, that's the lane I want to run in, because that's where the best performances have come from. However, if you don't get some of the good cars in the left side of the track, we don't know how good that is. And in the second round of competition, we've got a lot of winners, and only half of them are going to get to go on the right side. So the second round ought to give us some really good results.
Now, that's the kind of day it's been. Kenny Bernstein done. He's okay. We, however, are not done. We're just going to take a little bit of a break. We'll join you again 6 p.m. Eastern Time, right back here with coverage from Atlanta Dragway. Hope you can stay tuned. We'll see you later today at 6 Eastern. For Frank, I'm Eli. So long.